We hope to unify the right. That's a principal objective of ours, so that no vote is wasted or lost.
Okay, so on that note, then, and I've discussed this with you before, is that a lot of people on the right are just Yeush. We're in despair in that there are so many little parties and we need unity. Like if you and Feiglin and Smotrich and Ben Gvir and any other right-wing people got together in one big party, and then later after you would get into the Knesset, you can split up into your own parties again. Like, why aren't you doing this? Because you may not even pass the threshold.
So the only thing I can say right now is I'm putting my hand out to Moshe Feiglin. I'm putting it out right now. Unify. If you want my head, I'll give it to you. But Jewish unity has to be achieved at any cost.
Jonathan Pollard is a business entrepreneur, an Israeli ex-spy, and he's now announced that he's going into politics and is joining the Orot HaShachar party, which means the dawn is here, basically. And so, in a couple of sentences, what exactly does your party stand for?
We stand for unity on the right, and we also stand for the dignity of our country. We stand for a normative Jewish identity, and in particular, sovereignty over Yehuda and Shamron and Gaza. We hope to unify the right. That's a principal objective of ours, so that no vote is wasted or lost.
Okay, so on that note, then, and I've discussed this with you before, is that a lot of people on the right are just Yeush. We're in despair in that there are so many little parties and we need unity. Like if you and Feiglin and Smotrich and Ben Gvir and any other right-wing people got together in one big party, and then later after you would get into the Knesset, you can split up into your own parties again. Like, why aren't you doing this? Because you may not even pass the threshold.
Our whole political strategy is based on alliances. And yes, what you just said is exactly what we hope to accomplish. A unity on the right with Moshe Feiglin, with parties like Noam, with Bezalel Smotrich, with Itamar Ben Gvir. We all have to get together or we will fail. And so this is why we're ready to join any political party on the right, that, of course, that reflects our own party platform, and present a unified front for anybody that wants to vote right.
I've been discussing this with other people, and I've heard that perhaps, well, we all know it takes millions of shekels to be able to have a campaign and get known and get the votes out for your party. There is a thought that perhaps the left wing, wanting to weaken the right and break it up into little parties, comes to someone and says, "We really believe in you. Here's 10 million shekel or 20 million shekel to go out and start a party." And basically, it's the left doing it in order to break up the right. What do you have to say about that?
Halavai. Because our objective, as I
Halavai
said,
means it should be. Go ahead.
because our objective is really not to be so much an independent party, but a magnet for other parties to come together to provide a unified front to the left. So if anybody on the left is hearing this and wants to give us 10 million shekels, please be my guest. You may not like the results, though, because it may not be what you hope for.
Nisim Luke, he is the father of one of the women in October 7th who was brutally raped and tortured. Her body was seen on videos contorted, like they must have broken her hips and legs when they did terrible things to her. And we all know what those terrible things are, what they did to our women. How did you hook up with him?
Through the party. I must admit, though, that people like his daughter, victims like his daughter, to me, represented Israel. They did to her what they wanted to do to all of Israel. For me, she kind of acts as a symbol, a terrible symbol of what these animals wanted to do to all of us, starting with our women and children. It wasn't just, the Bibas or other victims of this. The Bibas crime against that family represents a crime against the family. And all of us understood that. But with this young girl, she represented the youth, the women, the young women of this country. And as I've said before on many occasions, our women are our future. They represent everything good and holy in our faith. They were the ones, the women in our people didn't with the Egel Hazahav, with the golden calf, they didn't they didn't violate our laws. The men did, but the women stayed true to our faith. So when I saw what they did to this young lady, I just took that as a manifestation of what they wanted to do to our young women. And I feel almost ashamed when I see this scene because, in a major way, we're all kind of responsible for what happened to his beautiful daughter. Why? It isn't just the army that failed us. It isn't just the intelligence community that failed us. It isn't just the political echelon, left, right, and center, that failed us. All of us in this country, to some degree or another, failed this man and his daughter. Well, how? By not keeping our eyes open. Maybe I didn't yell and scream enough in the days and weeks leading up to October 7th. Maybe I failed in going to the right people in the press who never reported anything I gave them. But all of us, to some degree or another, have an obligation right now to him to make sure that such an atrocity never happens again.
I think that to bring it even further, it's not even that we didn't keep our eyes open, but that we even tolerate an entity like this in our midst. And they have forfeited their rights to be living there. They should be taken out. And I know that's part of your party's platform as well, is to transfer them out, let them live a nice life someplace else, but they have
Someplace else.
forfeited their right to live in our territory, in our and as I'm speaking right now, as we're recording this, this is pre-recorded. There's red alerts now in Shatula up north on the Lebanese border in Israel. They are
Well,
firing
this gets back to
rockets.
something else, Tamar. And that's an inability on the part of our political echelon, again, left, right, and center, and our military institution to understand and implement decisive victory. There is no reason why we should tolerate this. Think about this. A couple of years ago, you remember, and Moshe Feiglin talked about this quite effectively. They built a tent. Hezbollah built a tent on our territory, our sacred land, and dared us to do something. And we blinked. This is why I don't believe at all in ceasefires, red lines, yellow lines, whatever color line you want. We have to move north. I've been arguing for the Awali River and to destroy Hezbollah completely. Lebanon, what the Americans don't understand, and a lot of Israelis in positions of authority don't understand either, is that Lebanon as a country does not exist. It's a battleground of warring minorities. That's all. And we should treat that area accordingly. There is no reason whatsoever for us to tolerate an American president, quote, forbidding us or prohibiting us from doing anything in Lebanon in defense of our people. It's obscene. And this is why the new people we hope will come in as a result of October 7th will never tolerate this kind of insult. And that means people on the left, people on the right, all new people coming in. I've told people in the wake of General Zamir's criticism of the Moshiach patch and the Beit HaMikdash patch, full disclosure, I've paid for tens of thousands of these patches. People have to understand that we have a Jewish army with Jewish values. And if these soldiers, many, I would say most of them, are secular, who took those patches from me, the religious guys didn't take them. The secular guys took them. And I asked them, why are you, you've got tattoos and metal, why are you taking a Moshiach patch? And one guy, kind of speaking for his platoon, looked at me and said, like I was an idiot, looked at me and said, because we now know what we're fighting for. And it gave me chills to hear this from this young man.
This reminds me of when Shimon Peres was running against Netanyahu, more or less, and he lost. And when they interviewed him the next day, he said, Israel lost. And they said, who won? The Jews. That's his answer was the Jews won.
Yes, exactly. The Jews won. So, when I read about things, as I did this morning, of a poisoning in the Shamron near the Alon Road of a sheep farm by Arabs, I was staggered, and my wife Rivka came over and put her arm around me and said, "Who?" Because I usually react that way when someone I know is hurt or, God forbid, killed. And I said, "Look at this," and she was horrified. But why was she horrified? Because we allowed them to do it. That's why. We had to talk about this, my wife and I, this morning. And she said, this is my wife, a woman of Israel, said to me, we need a second conquest of the land with everything that means. And I agree with her. We need a second conquest. It's a very short distance between poisoning sheep and poisoning people. And they've tried that also.
I second and I third that. All right. What's going to happen if there is no unity? What happens if Feiglin says, I don't need these people, they don't align with me, or Ben Gvir says, I don't want to align? Are you still going to run?
Yes, we will still do whatever we can to stand as a representative, as a beacon, if you will, for Jewish unity. Even if one party, Noam, for example, decides to join with us, or if Moshe Feiglin, please God, joins with us, just these two parties alone, we should be able to save upwards of 2 mandates. And that, in the next Knesset, could be critical, absolutely critical. So when people talk to Moshe, they should tell him point blank, we stand united or we die singly. That's the only thing we can say to him. I don't have any problem if it's required to bow out, to withdraw, if that's what he demands. I'm willing to do anything in order to save Jewish votes on the right, I hope he doesn't demand that, but I won't have any problem if it means a unified party. So I can only hope that people listening to this broadcast will contact him and contact Noam and contact Bezalel and contact Itamar and say, what is the matter with you? Start thinking. We need unity. And if not, don't blame us if worst comes to worst, God forbid.
What about uniting the country in that what could you offer people who may not define themselves as a right winger? The guys, like you said, with tattoos and they're not real they don't keep the mitzvot, etc. What can you offer them?
One of my guiding principles is the need for military self-sufficiency. And on the other side of that principle, strategic independence. And after October 7th, I think a lot of people understand on all sides of the aisle. We offer them a notion that everyone, including Arabs, must do mandatory national service of one's choice, or else if we could swing this, you lose the right to vote. Now, I have to say, for the Arabs, I don't want them in the army, but they can do enough national service in their own community. For the secular kids, it's enough already. Upwards of 30% of all draft age secular kids suddenly develop mental problems. They become pacifists. They tell the recruiting officers, look, I'm taking drugs and I'm not going to stop. That has to end. It's not just the Haredim. It's not just them. It's also the left. And there are a lot of guys I know
That are refusing to serve, you mean?
they're refusing to serve. I've talked to so many guys in Mulim, secularists, who are enraged at the fact that their neighbors' kids, all buffed up, they're in Krav Maga and everything else, are sitting around smoking cigarettes, looking at the YouTube or Spotify or something, and they're pacifists. These guys want this to end as well. We have to understand another principle. For example, with medical school, the preferences given to Arabs. This is obscene. The only preferences that should be given are to those young men and women who have done national service. They get the preference. I have a dear friend whose son is a medic in Maglan, going to medical school. And it's hard for him because he keeps being called up. That has to end. So there are many issues that unite this country, including the notion of decisive victory. The notion that if we put a man or a woman into the field, they aren't fighting for a ceasefire that will only result in the reestablishment of a Hamas state in Gaza. We will win. We will throw them out. We will destroy Hamas, and we will reestablish Jewish presence in Gaza. This is something that resonates with the soldiers and their families. When I talk to somebody, a dear friend of mine like Sima Hassan, an absolutely fearless woman, wonderful person, she and I talk to each other. We're not talking over our heads because our values for the state of Israel are the same. Security, security, security. I can put it in religious terms. She can put it in, well, she has two sons, Giborim. She has two sons in Krav, in combat arms. She wants them to fight for something other than a ceasefire. And we're aligned on that. Okay, so there are a lot
I
of
think
issues.
every mother in Israel is aligned with you on that,
Correct.
including myself.
No, if we put a soldier in the field to fight on our behalf, we have to assure them adequate equipment, which they don't have right now, and victory. They're not fighting for a ceasefire with outdated, dangerous equipment. I've spent, Tamar, a fortune, literally a fortune, buying equipment. Yes, and I was even threatened by Tamar Yosalmi that if I didn't stop buying military equipment for our boys and girls in service, she was going to have me arrested because they didn't need it. And I said to her, okay, give me an hour so I can alert the press so they can be present when you lock me up. Because I said I couldn't pay for that kind of publicity. Never heard from her. So what I'm trying to say is there are lots of things. Even, for example, on the economic front, we don't have a an industrial policy in this country, as every other OECD nation has. We don't. We're a maker of high tech. Well, I'm sorry, not everybody is a genius electrical engineer. I tried to start an electric car company in this country, and it was Mary Regev that refused to see me. And I think one of the reasons for that was I refused to agree to deal with one of the five families that control the auto industry in this country. Something like that unites a leftist and a rightist because we're both harmed equally by
The
this
economy.
monopoly, by the monopoly. And that has to end. Monopoly economics and monopoly politics has to end.
Why this party? Why Orot HaShachar, the Dawn is Here party? Is that how you translate it into English? Because it's not exactly the translation.
Yeah, it's
I
it's
know,
more
but it goes smoother that way. Okay, why this party? And how did you get connected to it?
why this party? Well, practically speaking, the party was already in existence. So it was a question of negotiating for a transfer of ownership. This is a fairly standard thing that people do when they don't want to spend an enormous amount of money establishing a new party. Second of all, their party platform, which we of course have adopted, has already been approved. It went through the whole legal approval process. And that also is a very important thing when you're starting off with a new party, even if it's taken off the shelf, so to speak, because the left has a habit of going after right-wing parties for being racist and being inciting and all of these other things. So our agenda, so to speak, has already been vetted. And I just might add parenthetically, when someone like Yair Golan, I'm sorry for mentioning his name in front of a lady, but Yair Golan says he wants to shut down Channel 14, he wants to shut down Orot HaShachar, he wants to.
And he's the one, it's important to say, that was saying that Israeli soldiers killed babies.
Exactly. And from the left, I've called a lot of editors in chiefs and asked them, are you going to editorialize about this? Listen, crickets, heard nothing. So we have to be doubly careful that we don't give them the opportunity to tie us up in court. So the bottom line on this is the party existed. The owners of the party were very kind and decent enough to transfer ownership to us. The party platform has already been vetted and approved. And what we're doing is adding things as we go along that are consistent with the values expressed in the party platform. How did I get involved with this? Um, I have a very dear friend, Yair Ansbach, who you may know,
Yes.
a guy that I have absolutely immense and unqualified respect for. And he was the one that told me about Orot HaShachar and brought me in. And Yair, if you're listening to this, um, when you get out of Milim, we need you. Okay, we need your organizing skills right now. So
When you get out of the Miluim is reserves for anyone who doesn't
reserves,
know.
reserves.
All right. So one last word. Take it away. Why do people need to vote for you?
It isn't so much voting for me; it's what I and the other members of Orot HaShachar represent. First and foremost, unity on the right, a defense of Jewish principles, a defense of an independent and proud Jewish state, and a willingness on the part of all of us to feel the pain and suffering of our fellow Jews, no matter where they are, no matter what they're doing, no matter what their political orientation is. We're about unity, not just among the right, but amongst the entire nation of Israel. And if you want to vote for somebody who represents those values, then vote for me.
And I would add two words to everybody as well, and that is decisive victory. That's
Good.
what Israel needs. I agree with that. And I hope that your message will go out. And I hope that there will be, because you talk about unity, but then again, you're in a small party, that your party will be absorbed, as well as other parties on the right, absorbed into one
Block.
strong block. Yes. And get in there and do what needs to get done. And just this is what we want the people of Israel to put
And
the
if I
egos away, just to
wait,
put the egos away, come together, like you said, and do the job. A decisive victory, fix the economy. Also, like you were talking about, is like an oligarchy here in many ways, and this affirmative action like they had in the
with
United
Jews,
States for but for the Arabs now, because we're trying to, educate them, etc. Because and they have lower grades many times,
and they
but
come
they're
from
pushed through. Then
universities
a
like
Jew has higher grades, and
which is a terrorist school. So the only thing I can say right now is I'm putting my hand out to Moshe Feiglin. I'm putting it out right now. Unify. If you want my head, I'll give it to you. But Jewish unity has to be achieved at any cost.
amen. Jonathan Pollard, thank you so much, and good luck, and God bless.
Same to you, Tamar.
Hey everyone, to make sure you can get access to all of our interviews, make sure to hit the subscribe button on both our YouTube and Rumble channels. Your click makes us all stronger. Thanks.